My mom accused me of being ungrateful and cut me off, all because I supported my dad when he needed me most, but now that he's no longer with us, my mom is trying to claw her way back into my life. I'm 35 meters, and my parents divorced when I was 17. My dad struggled with addiction, and my mom eventually left him, which I completely understood and supported. Living with him was impossible. While he wasn't violent, he was verbally horrible and spent all our money on his habits. That was the final straw for my mom. After the divorce, my dad spiraled, he nearly OD'd and ended up in the ICU. At the time, I was living with my mom, but I was scared my dad might not make it, so I moved back with him and my uncle's family. My mom was disappointed, but she let me make my own choice. Losing my mom, most of his friends, going broke, and nearly meeting his end finally got through to my dad, and he promised to get better for me. It was hard to watch, but he actually turned things around. My uncle paid for everything: rehab, therapy, medical bills, and after about 5 years, my dad was clean and somewhat healthy again. He even apologized to my mom, and she forgave him, though she later told me it was only for my sake so they could be civil at events like my graduation or wedding. Over those years, I kept in regular contact with my mom and met with her often. She had moved on and met a great guy, who she eventually married. She was much happier, and I was happy for her. I thought we had a pretty good relationship. That changed when I was 23. My mom asked me to come over, and she told me she was still angry and disappointed that I had chosen my dad over her after the divorce. She said I was ungrateful for everything she had gone through, putting up with my dad's behavior, and then hit me with something that still pisses me off today. She told me she could see me becoming a drink and pill addict like my dad because I stayed close to him. I don't drink or take anything to this day, so I had no idea where that even came from. I was floored. I thought we had moved past all that, but apparently, she had been harboring resentment for years. Then, she said she wanted to go no contact with me because being around me brought back too many bad memories of my dad. She said she had found peace and happiness, and I was a reminder of all the pain she'd been through. I didn't know what to say except, okay. I later found out from a cousin on her side that her whole family was pissed at me for staying with my dad, and they all went no contact with me for her sake, saying I had betrayed her. I haven't seen or heard from my mom since that day. Fast forward to now, my dad passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack, a result of his years of addiction, despite being clean for over a decade. He still had lingering health issues. I recently got married, and my wife posted some pictures from the wedding on Facebook. My wife said a woman claiming to be a cousin contacted her. I looked at the message, and it was a cousin from my mom's side, asking if it was really me in the pictures, using my full name. I told my wife to ignore it, but later that same day, I got a call from my uncle. For context, the house where my uncle lives now is where I grew up with my parents. My uncle said my mom had shown up at his house, asking him to arrange a meeting between us, saying she wants to apologize to me face to face. He told me he could set it up if I wanted. Honestly, after all these years, I feel nothing for her except maybe slight resentment for thinking I would turn out like an addict. I was going to say no right away, but my wife thinks that's a harsh thing to do and that I should at least hear her out, let her apologize, and then go back to never seeing her again if I want. She says that despite what my mom did, she did shield me from most of my dad's addictions growing up. Now I'm having second thoughts. Would I be wrong if I refused to meet her? Relevant comments. Comment 1, no, you wouldn't be wrong. You have to go with your gut. It has been 10 years, and she's realized you didn't become an addict and have created a happy life. You're married, which means there could be grandkids in the future. Are you happy without her? If you've moved on without that side of the family and have created your own happy family, why rock the boat? Your wife may not be able to let it go, though, and if you turn your mother down, you're going to have a lot of people contacting you and your wife to tell you how cruel you're being. I couldn't deal with that personally. I don't do drama. She made a choice, and you've respected it. I'd say no and be ready to block her if needed. Comment 2, I wouldn't say you're wrong. But I wonder if you're an only child. She might be thinking that since you got married, you could be having kids, and she wants to be a grandmother. You have to consider what her ulterior motive might be. Response, one of my reasonings is also this. She never cared before that cousin probably told her about the wedding pictures. Comment 3, I agree with everything except your take on the wife's attitude. I think she's pushing her own feelings, not supporting him with his. He doesn't owe his mother hearing her out just so she feels less guilty. Response, my wife is just looking out for me so that I don't have any regrets. I know she will fully support me if I say I do not want to meet her. Update. I didn't expect the number of comments I got on the first post. Thank you to everyone who weighed in, whether you agreed with me or not. There were so many different perspectives, and I've taken time to think about everything. First, I want to address something. A few of you said I abandoned my mom when I went to live with my dad. Looking back, I can see how it seems that way, but I never felt I abandoned her. I loved my mom dearly, and I loved my dad too. When she told me she was divorcing my dad, I helped her pack and left with her because, at the time, I thought my dad was a lost cause. I went back about 7 months after the divorce when my dad was fighting for his life. That was when he promised me he would change and get help. I chose to stay with my dad after getting permission from my mom. As I mentioned in my first post, she was disappointed but agreed that my dad needed me. Even after I moved back with my dad and uncle, I stayed in contact with her. My mom and dad lived about 20 minutes apart, and I made sure to see my mom regularly, 4 to 5 times a week at least. We talked every day, went on trips, had meals together, and spent time with each other as much as we could. When she moved in with her new husband, John, she always included me in her new family's life, and John was good to me too. During all that time, she never showed any signs of resentment or anger about my relationship with my dad. She blindsided me with the decision to go no contact. I was completely shocked. After she cut me off, I tried for a couple of years to reconnect but eventually gave up when I moved out of the city. Now, for the update. Many of you suggested meeting her for closure, while others said not to bother. After thinking it over, I decided I would meet her and planned to ask my uncle to set it up. However, before I could tell him, my uncle called me again, 3 days after my mom showed up at his house. He said she had come by again and left a letter for me, apologizing for bothering him and saying she wouldn't come by again. She explained she didn't want to raise my hopes unnecessarily and hoped I would understand after reading the letter. My uncle said she seemed very sincere. I asked my uncle to send me pictures of the letter. It wasn't that long, so I'll summarize the important bits. The letter was a mix of apologies and well wishes. She wrote that she was sorry for how she treated me back then, especially for saying I'd turn out like my dad. She explained she had been going through some relationship issues with John, and seeing my dad getting better made her feel bitter because he had never tried for her. She thought her second marriage was failing and felt everyone around her was happy while she was miserable. She admitted to listening to bad advice and regretted taking her anger out on me when she should have sought help. She also wrote that she made up lies to her side of the family to get them to side with her, though she didn't specify what those lies were. She mentioned she got help a couple of years after going no contact but was too ashamed to reach out to me. After seeing the wedding pictures, she was happy for me and wished me the best. She originally wanted to meet but, upon reflection and with her family's advice, realized it was selfish and for her own sake. She apologized again, saying it's better for both of us to keep things as they are. She ended the letter by saying she's happy now, doesn't want to drag up the past, and apologized once more, asking me not to contact her. She wished me and my wife well. So, there's that. Honestly, it's probably the best outcome, and I'm at peace with it. I'm happy with my life, and I'm glad my mom is happy with hers. As she requested, I won't contact her, but I will keep the door open if she wants to meet in the future. I also realized how foolish it was for me to hold on to resentment over her comment about me becoming an addict. I also want to address the comment saying my wife was overstepping. My wife knows all about my past and my mom. She's a kind soul who sees the best in people. She was just looking out for me, wanting me to have no regrets. She did apologize for saying it would be a bad move not to meet my mom, but it's all good. We both respect each other's boundaries and communicate well. Right now, we're planning our honeymoon, and life is good. Thanks for all the supportive messages and comments. I truly appreciated it. Bye.